Okay, welcome back, everybody. This is our QuaranSTREAM, where we try to talk about the time in quarantine and try to provide you with answers for COVID-19. I'm Abrar Omeish. I'm one of your members at large on the school board.
And I'm Kimberly Boateng, and I'm the student representative on the school board.
So as always, we're doing our best. We'll start off with updates to provide you with the information that we have, and then we'll open it up to Q&A and help address anything that folks are thinking about. So to start off, just a couple of general things and reminders for folks countywide. So as we know, despite this time, there's an election coming up and the census is also still going on. And those are two crucially important things. You may have heard from your public officials over the course of the past few weeks about the importance of filling out the census. It impacts school funding. It impacts nearly anything you can think of that has to do with population numbers and understanding who lives in the US and how many people live where. In fact, even impacts how many members of Congress represent each state. Or how many are in each district, excuse me. So just make sure, they're making it easier for everyone now. So we mail in our letters. You should have received a census letter in terms of, and it is not, just for folks to be aware, it's not something that's used by any other agency. It's considered relatively private in that way. So it can't hurt you if you're concerned about, handing in your information in that way. And the other piece, of course, is the voting, the election in June. They have opened up early voting for everyone. You don't have to have one of the criteria that you normally have to have to vote early. All you need to do is pick option 2A, that for reasons of illness, you want to vote early, and mail it in so that you don't have to physically, go, and so we can avoid the challenges that will happen without that degree of social isolation. So just two reminders that you want to do ahead of time. So as of Friday, Fairfax County, the city of Fairfax, and the city of Falls Church have seen 372 cases of COVID positive and 5 deaths. So keeping everyone in our prayers and continuing to come together as a community to socially isolate and keep those numbers down. An additional update, Dr. Brabrand did a Facebook Live update last week. If you had the opportunity, you may have asked your questions and whatnot. There's some useful information there. We're going to be covering that as well. So you're welcome to ask any additional questions you may have. And check that out on the FCPS Facebook page. So if you go to Fairfax County Public Schools, you'll find the video there. Additionally, we talked the last time about the fact that the school board will be entering our budget season if everything goes as planned, getting permission from the Board of Supervisors and whatnot. And the first meeting is going to be on April 9th, and it's going to start at 10 a.m. and it will be live streamed. We're going to be using Blackboard Collaborate, just like students who are going to be learning on that tool. So be sure to tune in and follow along with what's happening with the budget and what the county updates are on our end. And finally, so you may have heard about the CARES Act. In the national news, Congress was just discussing it, debating it, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. So how does that end up impacting us? Because of course, these national decisions do trickle down. Luckily, there's been part of the stimulus package as a result of the Corona challenges has been allocated to education. So the Education Stabilization Fund, the ESF, is a subset of that money. And that amount of money basically was divided up amongst the states for 3 main purposes. One of them was the governor's allocation fund. The other is for elementary and secondary schools, so essentially K through 12. And the third is for higher education. And each state got a pot of that money. In Virginia, we got a little bit over 2% of that money. So it puts us at about $30.75 billion and million, excuse me. Billion. And the breakdown of that, about 10% goes to the governor's emergency education fund. So Governor Northam will have the opportunity to allocate whatever he deems most important of that money. It's about $66 million. And then about 44% has been allocated to us from that second pool, which is the elementary and secondary school fund, emergency relief fund. So that's about $238.5 million. So just to give you guys some perspective, basically over the course of the coming weeks and months, the governor will be determining how he wants to utilize these funds and sending them to various jurisdictions across the state. But did want to tell you that we're going to be continuing to, advocate, especially for the second stimulus package, which I'm sure is going to be coming forward, to fund public education and to bail out our schools, because as you all know, the financial situation is declining. It's going to be a little bit tough for all of us, but we are going to be fighting to make sure that our kids are prioritized throughout that. Alrighty, so with that, Kimberly will give us an update on some of the services that are offered and resources for families.
Yeah, totally. So in terms of food, there was a total of 210,671 meals delivered since Friday. On Monday through Fridays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., those who are under 18 get free breakfast and lunch, while adults can pay for those meals for $2. They'll be curbside, and pickup for both can be at the same time. So this also continues throughout spring break. And to view the map of all locations, I don't even know if I can screen share. Abrar, are you able to help me out with this one?
Oh yes, let's go ahead and show everyone. So on the FCPS website, right?
Yeah, FCPS website, and then you would go to news, features, and events.
In 1 second. Okay, I think we are screen sharing now. Okay, so under news, features, and events, let's go there real quick. So where do you want me to go, Kimberly?
So, and then it'd be under news, and then it'd be Corona update, food resources for families.
Okay.
Oh, I think I saw you. Yeah, I think I might have seen you pass it.
Here we go. So as soon as they go to the homepage, see more news, features, and events. There we go. So under news.
And then under coronavirus update, food resources for families.
Let's see. In the general update.
Should be, let me check real quick myself.
For the bus routes of the food plan, right?
Yeah, you scroll,
make sure.
Yeah, scroll halfway for bus route link.
Here we go. So right here in this, so as soon as we get to the homepage, as soon as you see this yellow announcement on the cover, you can find where it says details on locations and times available for the distribution of meals here. Click on that. And then here we go, map of food resources in Fairfax County, view map. Takes a sec to load, but here you'll be able to identify the locations that are doing the breakfast and lunch distributions and find the closest one to you. And Dr. Brabrand answered in the Facebook Live that children do not have to be present to pick up the meals, but be mindful that adults who want to obtain meals will be paying $2 for the meal. Whereas, of course, for students or children, it's free. So there we go. And you can zoom in to where you live in the map and see what's available. There we go. So if you click on it, it'll tell you, it'll refer you to contact information and tell you what the location is. And I think, Kimberly, maybe you mentioned it's curbside. Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so we can keep going.
All right. Thank you for that, Abrar.
Of course.
And also in terms of technology, 8,663 laptops were distributed and 462 MiFi devices were distributed. And there was a total of 2,163 just on Thursday alone. So by now, all high schoolers should have the laptops that they need. And middle schoolers are in the midst of getting and should have and also some of them should have gotten them already. And laptops are starting to be distributed for elementary schoolers who have identified technology needs. So MiFi devices are being provided for students that don't have reliable internet connection, and FCPS access to technology page gives a summary of resources that are available to families, such as low-cost internet services.
Yeah, and as always, guys, we're your school board members. If you don't have these devices and you have not heard from the school system, or you haven't received them yet, be in touch, especially if you're high school, middle school, because those we're in progress or should have been completed by now. So I just want to make sure we have the resources that everybody needs available to them. So what about academics? A lot of people are asking plenty of questions on this. So this past week, folks should have received a packet by now. 151,000 packets were mailed to families between pre-K and 8. So if you didn't receive something, be sure to reach out to your teacher or to your school principal and find out more. Make sure you're on the list and whatnot, although everyone should really have received it. There were also different packets for special education that were sent out with specialized adapted material. And since then, we showed last time that on the website, you're able to sign out of the packets mailed packets. You can opt in the email only or online only. So 395 families have done so, and I encourage you to do so if you have the capabilities at home to go paperless. There will be an additional packet coming near the end of this coming week. You should expect to receive it. It will include specific packets for English language learners as well, if that's something that you used to take classes for in school. And Dr. Brabrand also mentioned that there in his live stream, so I'm taking it from him, that advanced math packets will also be sent for K through third grade in the next week. Since then, there have been over 200 sessions training staff in various adapted learning styles and online technology. And I wanted to mention specifically for special education, for those parents of you who have definitely been concerned about services and whatnot, that the training has included instruction, behavioral supports, and accommodations for special needs students when doing that for our staff. And this all happened over the course of the past week. Like I said, over 200 sessions of training have gone down. Last time I did get a question about academics in the summer registering for online classes. So registration for online summer courses, as Dr. Brabrand mentioned in his live stream, is available, and it's going to continue to be available. The sign up ends on June 12th. So those of you who asked, feel free to kind of find that and sign up. A couple things as well, have been able to collect and compile school supplies for those students who don't have access. So if anyone who is considered a Title I student will receive supplies by April 6th. There's Where did we stop?
Let me see.
Okay, so we're sorry about that, folks. We don't know what happened. I think it just disconnected, but we are back. And so the first part, of course, of our updates was in the previous video. We went over special education supports, English language learners, academics, basically just a broad update on academics. we covered broad overview updates for the county. And we also talked about food and technology distribution updates. So if you had questions about those or wanted to know more information about those, please do watch our previous session. It just cut off. But we're back and we're going to discuss employees. So to make sure everyone is on the same page and we provide you with what we have as of now. So as Dr. Abrar mentioned, we are still hiring. Teachers are still being hired. Despite the fact that job fairs were canceled. So feel free to continue sending in those applications. And as we've mentioned in our previous streams, teachers who are contract-based or all staff who are contract-based will continue to be paid. Temporary workers have been paid for the past 2 weeks, and the school board will be making a decision about whether to continue doing so. The Employee Assistance Program, EAP, remains a free service for any FCPS staff member, providing updates about the coronavirus situation and helpful resources. And if anyone needs access to legal and financial coaching, work-life balance questions, confidential counseling, that kind of support, it is available to employees. So the number is 1-855-355-9097. And for the deaf and hard of hearing, it is 1-800-697-0353. And it's also on the website for those folks who may not access it through this video. If you are logging in for the first time, FCPS is the user ID. And if you have any questions, you can email EAP, that's for Employee Assistance Program, questions. So EAP questions at fcps.edu. So just be mindful that the school system is there for you if you're an employee, and there are services and resources that can help you out. The biggest update really for employees today is about the health insurance situation. So I would highly recommend going to the FCPS website to look at the detailed updates on each plan. But there are a couple of changes. So luckily, the CARES Act that I mentioned in the beginning, the stimulus package by Congress, has allowed for some flexibility. For example, the flexible spending account that you normally would have used has opened things up so that you don't actually require a prescription anymore for non-prescription drugs to be considered an expense through your FSA. And menstrual products are also going to be considered an expense that you can use your FSA for. So those are some things to look forward to, as well as some changes in the payment plans. As I said, Kaiser, for example, is no longer charging copays, and you'll see a number of updates depending on the plan you've chosen through FCPS. So the place to go on the website is Benefits News and Updates. You can search that in the search bar and you'll be pulled up to that. In addition, a number of these providers have, if they haven't before, have been providing or if they have expanding their telehealth resources. So be sure to check those out as we continue to socially isolate to make sure you're staying healthy and seeing a doctor when you need to. So overall, if you have any questions about benefits, payroll, staff related matters, as always, hrconnection@fcps.edu is an email that you can ask, use for further information. And then in terms of general information and resources, Kimberly is going to walk us through a number of mental health supports that are available.
Yeah, so there are multiple phone numbers and websites that you can visit if you or somebody you love might be battling with their mental health in this very tough time. So Abrar is going to screen share again as I kind of walk through this whole thing to get to the information that might be very needed at this time.
Yeah, just a sec here. Okay, so we have our FCPS homepage.
And then you're gonna hit full menu, which is on the left-hand side of the screen.
Right here.
And then you're going to go to resources.
Mhm.
And once that page loads, you'll click Student Safety and Wellness. And then once you're on that page, you'll look for School Psychology Services.
As soon as it loads. There we go. So on this page, there are a number of mental health resources. We're specifically looking at this right here, School Psychology Services.
And once you go on that page, there'll be this tab that's called Mental Health Resources and Emergency Service Information.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Okay, so what are we? Yeah, there we go. Okay. So go ahead, Kimberly, you can continue.
Yeah, so those, like, once you get to this, you should see a number of phone numbers and websites that are designed to help guide somebody to whatever resources they may need during this time. Since this coronavirus is very trying times for a lot of people in this community, it's important that we all check up on each other and make sure that we got all the resources. And if you see somebody who might be going through something, might be struggling with their mental health, please encourage them to look through these and reach out to these resources, these crisis lines, and all these resources that can help them in their time of need. And there's also another resource that is more specifically for students in FCPS, and that is, well, kind of the same.
Is it the form?
It's, no, not the form just yet, but you would go to School Psychology Services like we just did, and instead it's called Student Wellness Tips and Strategies. So it's right before you click on this tab. And that resource should be able to tell you how a student could be able to take care of themselves and take care of their mental health. Not even, like, it was designed for right there, the yellow one. It was designed for during school, but it's just as relevant during this time when we're at home.
Right here, so they can read more about it right there. And I also wanted to point out something that's important for you to look at, especially in this social distancing time and distance learning, your school psychologist assignment, so that you know who to reach out to, who to email, particularly if you're a student, for that support. So as soon as it loads here. There we go. So we have a list of providers there, and then you can look at each individual school tab to find out who that is. And for students who have access to the FCPS network, of course, through their emails, you're able to find that contact information. Cool. And then there's one more resource we want to show as well, right, Kimberly?
Yeah. So for personal connection, parents are able to schedule a 30-minute consultation with the school psychologist or social worker for either themselves or the middle school or high school student. So the way you can find this, there's a Google form, and this one is kind of hard to get to. So thank goodness we're going to be able to try to show it to you. So the link is also found on the main website. So when you open it,
here's the home page.
Yeah, usually you will get the alerts, the yellow alert page. So under that, there'll be this thing called Read Updated. It's FAQS, which is frequently asked questions.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get there, you will scroll down to see mental health and wellness questions. So once this loads, we'll be able to show you that.
So yeah, you keep going down until the header. Until we find mental health and wellness. There we go.
Yeah. So the third question under that section, it'll be like, what mental health resources are available to support students and families? And there'll be a link to a Google form. So that Google form will be able, you'll be able to reserve a 30-minute consultation with your school psychologist or school social worker. So we just wanted to make sure that all the viewers and parents and students had access to this resource, and if it's needed, that you'll be able to use it.
Yeah, so you can go ahead and fill it out. Who is it for? You know, your student or and all that very, personal information so that they can contact you to schedule an appointment. Great. And there are additional resources right here at the bottom with phone numbers for emergency situations if there is a delay or a lag and you need more urgent services. Cool. Thank you, Kimberly. And I want to remind everyone that in our first QuaranSTREAM, we had a number of resources as well for general wellness and phone lines that were not only FCPS related, but broader, the crisis hotline for crisis situations, essentially, from the federal government, right, in a traumatic time. We put out resources for students who, chat rooms and whatnot that are certified with official professional therapists, things like that I would recommend you guys look into our first video to check that out. Okay, so before we open it up to Q&A real quick, just wanted to touch on the questions that you asked last time. So we mentioned the ones about, OT, which is going to be available online. We talked about the summer program. The caps and gowns questions that we received from one of our seniors, that is still going to be worked on. So remember when I mentioned right now, the focus is the distance learning plan, the academic side of things, making sure every student is catered to. And then right after that, we're going to talk about seniors. So staff will be discussing that. The date has not been determined just yet for when those will be distributed. And then there were questions about the English language learning program, the WIDA test, and then whether packets will be sent out for specific topics. Those are both questions that I'm waiting on answers for, and we'll get back to you as soon as I get them back from staff in a following live stream. And reminding you, of course, for the content specific packets question that we talked about how advanced math will be sent packets, special education will be sent out packets. So there's some differentiation, but waiting on more information about that as well. And with that, we will go ahead and open it up to questions. So I am opening this up right now. So there were a couple questions from the previous segment of this before it got cut off. So I will start with those, and then we'll go to your questions on this particular thread. So thank you guys. Any more info on how 504 plans will be handled? So as always, that is one of the things that is continuing to be a conversation with the Department of Education from the state. As of now, like I said, there will be services provided, and that adapted curriculum should have been sent out this week and will continue to be sent out in more detail. Teachers can provide more instruction on that particularly. As for the 504, like the IEP meetings or 504 specific, meetings with faculty and whatnot, or teachers, that is still something that I believe may be under consideration, but I'm going to be writing a note for myself to get you specific information on 504s, because I know there's a lot of attention on the IEPs because they have that legal kind of requirement. 504s may be a little bit different, but I will certainly ask for you and get you more information in the upcoming call or upcoming stream. Will we have a quarter four? Yes, there will be fourth quarter. You still have school, guys. You still have to do your homework and attend. The particular plan is there. So I will mark a note for myself. If there are no additional questions in the other thread, I will go back to this and show you guys the distance learning plan again, where you can find more details on your expected schedule and what that's going to look like. So pulling this up here to see what folks are asking about. Okay. Any more info? Okay, so that was the same question. Thank you, Ashley. But I do promise you I will ask about that specifically. And actually, I'm trying to bring in, if I get permission, some of the staff into our live stream to be able to answer some of these questions in more detail. So I'm currently awaiting a response from leadership team and whatnot to whether they consider that appropriate. But I was hoping to get Teresa Johnson in on one of these sessions to be able to answer, because she covers that subject area. And as you know, has much more detailed exposure to what's going on. Okay. What's your stance on universal basic income and disabilities inclusiveness? So I'll take your first question real quick. I personally I've always been a supporter of external resources like UBI. I think it's an incredible idea, and disabilities inclusiveness, absolutely. You know, that's one of the things we're striving for here, and I'm happy to talk more offline about my political stances in general, but I do want to make sure that this is a useful stream for folks who are asking for information about changes in the school system or accessing resources. And if no one else asks questions, I can come back to those. What's the best part about being a community advocate, and what advice would you give? I'm sorry about that. So what's the best part about being a community advocate, and what advice would you give to young folks who have a passion for public service? So you have many opportunities actually right now, young people, if you want to get involved. One of those ways actually is to join our student team. I will, you know, say and acknowledge that a lot of this effort right now is being fueled by incredible high school students who are really passionate about making things better for their peers, and collecting that information to alleviate anxieties, and spreading the word about resources that are available to families. So if you're a young person and you want to join, more than happy to include you. Please send me an email, or feel free to chat in this group. And folks, some of my high school students, I'm sure will take you up on that and have you join our team. So thank you for being proactive about that. And absolutely, public service is incredibly important when we're able to provide it. So making sure that we're all taking care of ourselves first and foremost, that we're doing well, socio-emotional well-being is great. And if we can extend a little bit of ourselves, it's certainly an honorable thing, and one of the things that makes me most proud of what I do. So if the coronavirus settles, is there a chance schools will reopen? So Ashley, it's a good question that's come up. So as of now, the answer is no. I don't, who knows what the future holds, but really the governor has made this clear from his side for the whole state. And the situation doesn't look like it's going to be in that direction anyway. So from a structural perspective, when we think system-wide for everyone, it actually is much more beneficial for us to make a decision and a clear call and plan accordingly, as opposed to kind of be in an indecisive state where we may not be prepared for the future if there are changes. So the decision now is no. With that being said, as I mentioned, there will be summer opportunities for folks. And hopefully return to instruction by April 14th in as seamless a way as possible. Knowing that that's not going to necessarily be the same, right? It's not a complete substitute. So what's going to happen actually is we're looking to, as a school board right now, we're discussing how we can set in place supplements and preparation for students when they come back, because we're expecting that certainly not everyone's going to come back on the same page. There will be gaps. Folks who had a difficulty or whatnot now may not, be as prepared for the following year. And we are still pushing as much as possible for every student to be promoted. So that means we need to provide that additional support. So as we discuss the budget, we really kind of have to reprioritize ourselves right now and think, all right, we probably need some discretionary, some spending that's going to be put towards maybe tutors or supplemental programs of various kinds that can provide that cushion that otherwise would have, wouldn't have been needed had we been in school. So we're thinking ahead about how we can make up for that and keep that in mind. But for now, no, schools will unfortunately remain closed. I should add, by the way, a resource I hadn't mentioned, which is also a pride and joy of my own heart, because I co-founded it with some high school friends from FCPS when I was a student more than 10 years ago now. And that's giveyouth.org is the website. So giveyouth.org, where we provide free tutoring for kids. And we've had this, so now it's 20 locations across the county. I was just talking to our current executive team, who is all high school students and are doing an incredible job. And we're going to try to expand the resources to provide free tutoring. So if you're someone who wants to tutor, or as a high school student, or if you're a student, elementary and middle in particular, who needs that support, be on the lookout for this. It's going to be we're hoping for it to be a really incredible resource to hopefully alleviate some of those gaps, right? So as your question is saying, we want to return to school, because of the challenges that exist with distance learning, I'm really hoping that this is an opportunity for students to be there for one another and to support each other both academically and from a mentorship perspective. So hopefully that'll be useful to folks. Okay, let's see. Ashley, do not, feel free to ask more. You don't have to limit yourself. So yeah. What should students do if it seems teachers aren't following the rules of fourth quarter? Yeah, absolutely. Very good question. So for example, assigning tests that could lower grades. So as of right now, grading in fourth quarter is actually going to be different, right? So we mentioned it's pass fail. For your particular example, tests that could lower the grade shouldn't be the case because regardless of the outcome, really, again, it's pass fail. Now, the broader question though, if teachers are not necessarily adhering to what, we're saying as a system, couple things. One, keep in mind, so teachers were trained over the course of this past week. So a lot of questions had come to teachers before that, when things were still uncertain, when teachers were trying to do their best and figure out what's going on. So I would recommend if you had heard some information prior to ask again or to clarify, because the teachers themselves were trained over the course of this week. If not, if it was after, or, if we're talking about right now, I would recommend, and the teacher, when you ask for clarification and spoke with the teacher and this remains the case, I would recommend reaching out to a counselor or the principal more likely to kind of look into the matter. You may be, directed to an assistant principal or whatnot, but effectively they're the leadership team for your school, and they can check in with the staff member. If that remains an issue for you, that's precisely why you have a school board, and we'll be happy to be here for you to support. So there's, you have four, five, kind of, depending on who you are, members who represent you on the board. So there are 3 at-large members. I'm one of them. Karen Keys-Gamara is another, and Rachna Sizemore-Heiser is another. They're my partners in this work. In addition to someone from your district. So depending on, where you live, you'll have another person. And then Kimberly, of course, who represents all the students. So if you're a student, you can reach out to 5. If you're a parent, there are 4 for you. And let us know, flag these things for us, because what we do, the way it works is we have region assistant superintendents for each of the various schools. And we will then, reach out to them and say, hey, there may be some challenges with implementation, or hey, you might want to look into this. I have a case to follow up on, and we can work with you from there. So I hope that that's useful. And that's kind of the rule across the board for any challenge you have with the school system. We always like to say, this is actually, I appreciate this question because you're giving me the opportunity to explain this to the community, but when you have a challenge, you go to your teacher. If your teacher doesn't help you fix it, you go to your principal. If your principal doesn't help you, you're welcome to come to your school board member. Your school board member will connect with the region assistant superintendent to see what's going on and see how we can help. So that's generally the hierarchy of things. But as a school board, our role, as Kimberly explained in our first video, is really more of an oversight, guidance kind of role for the superintendent, who ultimately is in charge of the broader staff team. And naturally, I mean, think of how big our school system is. We have almost 200 buildings, almost 190,000 students, over 16,000 staff. We're the largest employer in the state of Virginia. So when you think of a system that big, there are bound to be things, right, that may be oversights or implementation challenges. And we want to constantly work to improve that and minimize that as much as possible. So you bringing it to our attention could actually be something that's incredibly beneficial for many, many more people. Because, as we notice patterns or as we notice challenges, we start to think of how can we, mitigate this structurally with a policy maybe. And that's where the school board's role comes in. So I know it's more than you asked for with your question, but you did give me an opportunity to go over some things that I think are really beneficial for the community to know. So thank you. Jimmy, I love that. I love that. So one of our high school students is pointing out that he was one of the center managers for one of our tutoring locations for Give. Yes, so it's certainly wonderful to see that connection. Great. So any other questions? Folks, feel free to send them in. Kimberly, is there anything that you've been hearing about that you think we can address that will help people or clarify something for folks?
I mean, actually, I was gonna bring up about what Ashley said about like teacher, like maybe they had an issue with how a teacher, like maybe a teacher was assigning something. So I think there's some people, I think it's not to the teacher's fault, because I have heard some teachers who may not be like in the know
I
at
agree.
something. So I think reach out to your principals, because I actually had to do that earlier this week because there was like a misunderstanding with like math and something. So my friends asked me to reach out to our principal, and he was a great help. And I really suggest that everyone else do the same, because if that's something that happens, it may just be a misunderstanding on somebody's part, and it could be like just clarification could be needed so that there's no confusion.
Yeah, absolutely. It's critical. Sorry, my audio here. You know, what do we do? We're socially distancing. We're all at home, so this is what it is. Anyways, so yes, a critically important piece here is our teachers are really heroes in this whole thing. They're extending themselves beyond anything that was really expected of them when they signed up for the job. So 100% Kimberly, it's not even their fault. It's just so much happening that information getting to them too, sometimes there are gaps, right? So just because you hear something different, it doesn't always mean it's your teacher's fault. It could be a breakdown in so many different ways. And that's what, again, helpful to us to kind of see and notice, and then we try to make our school system better as a result. So thank you for clarifying that. Anyone else with questions? I just saw the what can kids do to help the community. You know, we had posted a number of things from last time, especially younger kids, in terms of what they can do. And I want to just pull those up real quick and point a couple things out. You know, there were some projects that some kindness, you know, like the kindness project that happens in various elementary schools. That what they were doing was, you know, encouraging kids to write positive messages on sidewalks or on trails. So that's always an option, you know, as we maintain social distancing and stay 6 feet away and read the guidance on the signs. If we go to parks and whatnot, it's you know, an idea to chalk or to do something that will bring about a positive message. In terms of formal volunteer activities, Volunteer Fairfax is the main resource right now for the county that is liaising with folks who want to volunteer. And they've listed everything for them, and you can reach out to them. So I would recommend looking at their website and you know, reaching out to them if you have specific projects you want to be a part of. But of course, with social distancing and whatnot, and you know, regulations from the state, there are obviously a limited number of things, right? Because even our distribution of technology, as we've touched on before, is done one-to-one with very particular sanitation requirements and staff who have been trained thoroughly. So just keeping those things in mind. No worries. We are happy to have you. What about yearbooks? Seniors, yes. And if they've been printed, are there refunds? Or they haven't been printed? Yeah. So you're right. Our poor seniors. We love you guys. I mentioned last time. Just think of the fact that this is really historic, and it's going to be, you know, some kind of really unique way of doing things, and you'll be the class that gets to be proud to have experienced that. And to set history. I mean, you know, your kids will be reading about this, and you'll get to tell them about the stories of what happened. But keeping that in mind, absolutely. So yearbooks, in terms of individual schools and the printing and whatnot, that all is going to be figured out once the senior conversation starts. So what's happening is, once we have the distance learning plan rolled out and things are going smoothly, the staff will shift their attention to senior matters. That's going to include caps and gowns, graduation, senior activities, if there's a way to virtually accommodate things like that, yearbooks, as you pointed out. So a lot of that will be happening. The planning for that and the conversation for that will be happening later. One thing I want to encourage you guys to look out for is that we're going to be doing a QuaranSTREAM specifically on seniors. And we're trying to engage class councils right now, the presidents, if they're applicable or not. Kimberly's done a great job helping me connect with folks. And we're going to try to to bring them together to brainstorm as a community, what can we do? And I'm in conversation with Dr. Ivy, who's our deputy superintendent, who's in charge of senior matters. That's one of the things in her role. And she has an unofficial working group of staff who are thinking about this, and we'll be picking it up as soon as we roll things out, because everyone is really like overwhelmed with the instructional piece, which of course is the most important piece right now, because we have a little more time for the senior planning. But that'll be happening, so stay tuned for that. And if you're interested in being a part of that or sharing ideas, reach out to hop into our team. Will high schoolers have final exams? Thank you, Jesse, for that question. So I actually asked about this specifically, and that has not been decided yet. So thanks to your advocacy, folks, especially students, by the way, on grades, our staff have been meeting with principals over the course of the week. I know I believe it was we did our stream on Thursday. So last Thursday, the deputy superintendent had mentioned to me that she had just walked out of a meeting discussing this matter with principals about grades and how this is going to be figured out. And there were a couple of things that are really important to keep in mind, right, that you guys have brought to our attention of better ways to potentially do it. Exams is a part of that conversation. So none of this has been decided yet, depending again on how successfully things can roll out, those decisions will be made. So reminding everyone that just because we don't necessarily have answers to some of these things, it doesn't mean that, oh my gosh, the school system doesn't know what it's doing, right? Sometimes it's actually really important for us to wait to make decisions until we have more information on what's happening. And one of the pieces of information that's going to be critically important is whether students are able to access classrooms. How many students are attending virtually? Are there major gaps? And are there major absences in what's happening, right? Once we have a sense of that and we feel that it can be successful, then we can start making decisions about things like final exams and having more concrete academic action. Once we feel that it's fair to hold students accountable, or it's not fair and we need to think of alternatives. So hate to break it to you, but the good news is that you're going to have other opportunities to improve your grade. So for right now, you guys know you have the 4 quarters. I'll go over this because I'm sure I'll get a question on it. I get a question on this every live stream, and happy to always answer it. That how are grades going to happen? So we have our 4 quarters right now. Normally the way grades are done is you get a grade for first, second, third, and fourth quarter, right? And then the average of that is your grade for that class. And that's what's reported on a transcript that ends up going to college. The way it's happening now is you guys have had 3 quarters. So the grade, so fourth quarter will be a pass-fail. This is what's again, with the fact that staff are now discussing how they can mitigate the potential problems that come out of this, okay? But this is what's put out so far. Fourth will be pass-fail, so it won't hurt your GPA. Third, your grade will not go any lower than it was. Okay, so if you had assignments or whatnot that you hadn't had the chance to turn in, those are all things you can do now. You can submit late work and make up work. It's where, the school system is taking a policy of maximum flexibility. Okay, so as long as it was before that date when we cut off school, you can submit those things. And that grade as a commitment for all teachers will not be lower than it was already. So then you'll have your 3rd quarter grade and your 2nd and 1st quarter grades, and those will be averaged. And that's the grade that will be reported. In addition to this, you'll have the chance, if you show improvement, to improve your grade even more. Okay, so because 4th quarter is pass-fail, a lot of kids thought that wasn't fair, right? Like you want to improve your grade over the course of the year. Maybe you didn't do so well in the beginning and now you're doing a lot better. So that there will be room for that to be able to improve your grade overall. It's something that, they're calling the mastery of the subject. So given maximum flexibility and the idea of demonstrating mastery, you'll be able to improve it so that overall that final grade that comes out of that course that's reported to college and is on your transcript will hopefully be the best one you could possibly have in a situation like this. And certainly this will be an ongoing process of figuring out how to improve it and continuing to be in touch with all the staff in the building, all the staff who serve you in your school community, to make sure that the best outcomes are coming about for you. The thing that I'm most excited about here, despite the challenge of the situation we're in, is that we're erring on the side of the student. So as long as you work hard and you do what you can with what you have, we know that not all of you are going to have the same resources at home. We know that some of you have home responsibilities now. You know, some of you are working jobs, or some of you are now babysitting your siblings, or doing all sorts of things that are happening that are different. Or maybe, honestly, guys, it's just overwhelming and it's hard to tune into class sometimes, and it's stressful, or you're not feeling well. Those are all things that are being taken into consideration. So hopefully we are, as I said, Dr. Presidio, our Director of Instructional Services, who is in charge of kind of the academic stuff, is taking the side, he's erring on the side of the students. So we're biased in your favor. So hopefully that answers that question and is useful. And of course, as I continue to get updates on the developments and adjustments that are coming out of that, especially related to final exams, I will be sharing these in our ongoing QuaranSTREAM sessions. Kimberly, was that good? Did I miss something about academics?
No, I don't think so.
Pretty thorough? Yeah, okay. If you have additional questions, folks, of course, you ask and I'll look at them here. Let's see. Okay, so I think that was the final question on our list here. Anyone else? Feel free to send in questions. Otherwise, I'll go back to some of the ones I deferred on earlier. So we'll give this a minute or so. Okay, here we go. Question. Sorry to put out sad news, but can I send out a prayer request for an FCPS family, the Stelfort family? They have 3 kids in FCPS and their house burned down last night. So long as this is public, since it's posted out here. Okay, so there is a person. All right, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention. We certainly want to be there for each other as a community. So we have here a family that is going through a tough time in a house that had a house fire, and there is a way to send gift cards, clothing items. Thank you so much for flagging this. We for COVID-19, ring the doorbell, let them see you, and leave it on the porch. Okay, and I'll add a detail to that. Try to make sure it's sanitized, and if you have Clorox wipes or something, do your due diligence to make sure folks are safe. Thank you so much for bringing that up. And so she posted an address and a person to contact in the chat, in the comments. So please, prayers for the Stelfort family. I know we're all we all have our own religious beliefs, but I will say, I know Kimberly and I both are people of faith. So may God bring them ease and patience and strength in this tough time. And thank you for pointing this out. I will be the first to vouch to do something here to help out, and I hope folks will take that up as well. Other questions or comments, or if you want to mention opportunity to support, I'm more than happy to highlight it. The other thing, folks, that in the meantime here, while people think of any last questions, that I wanted to point out is we're doing our best to also expand this live stream into something where we can bring in folks who are more knowledgeable on various topics. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier in the live stream, but we're going to continue doing that. We have someone from the county who may be coming in to talk specifically on mental health. And I'm reaching out to my colleagues to see if they want to tune in as well to answer some questions, maybe district specific things or other issues that you're thinking about. And beyond that, I want to try to facilitate community brainstorm. I mentioned the example of seniors, but certainly whether it's special education, mental health, focusing in on particular subject matters that I know are of high interest for the community. So if you have ideas or if there are things that you want to hear more about in more detail, please post topics. We're more than happy and open to kind of hearing things out and addressing what you guys are looking for. Really, the intention behind this was always to bring down the anxiety level, to share information and show we're all in this together, and this is what we're figuring out. And this is the most updated stuff that we know as we progress along here. And your feedback, by the way, and the questions that you ask are very helpful because I pass them along to staff and they shape the way we think, and hopefully point out where we can do better as well. So. Cool. I think it's, we've been a little over an hour here. If anyone else has any other question, we'll give it another couple seconds. And we'll be back, I mean, on Thursday, so. Cool. Thank you guys. So a reminder, April 9th at 10 a.m. will be a school board meeting. It'll be live streamed on all the channels. So as you may know, fcps.edu/TV is where you can watch it. April 9th at 10 a.m. We'll be discussing our plans with the budget and whatnot, and what's projected to happen. And of course, as always, on Thursday, I will be back for another live QuaranSTREAM, as we call it, and taking your ideas, answering your questions as much as possible. And I took note of the one question on 504s that I plan to bring more details on the next time, based on what staff have. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you on Thursday. Bye-bye.